Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Hey, sexy lady. Oppan Gangnam Style. Hey, sexy lady. Being norm, Korean 나는 norm. Baby, baby, 나는 뭘좀 아는 norm. Being norm, Korean 나는 norm. Baby, baby, 나는 뭘좀 아는 norm. Oppan Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Oppan Gangnam Style. Sexy lady. Oppan Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style.
All right,
呢個係一個
hello.
隱形牙套，嚟自
God
Smile
damn it,
Direct
fucking
Club，
ads.
有唔滿意嘅牙齒。
Hello, people. 2 viewers. It's about the same as usual when I first begin. Hey, nice to see Razor Gay Candy. Haven't seen you in a couple of streams, so nice to see you back here. Nice to see Korea Man, appropriately. So, yeah, we noticed a pattern, which is all of these really awful stories coming out of South Korea about South Korean feminism. And I remember almost a year ago, we had talked about one item about the, what was it, the anti-corset, escape the corset, that movement. And generally, I think that my take on that was very charitable. I think a little bit too charitable, much too charitable in hindsight, because I've kind of dived down the rabbit hole of Korean feminism, and it turns out, oh my God, I legitimately believe at this point, South Korean women, or at the very least, South Korean feminists, must be the most privileged group of people on the entire goddamn planet, without question. The more I look into like these feminist issues and feminist takes in South Korea, the pattern is that they've taken all of the conclusions of like white Western feminism, right? But like white women who are feminists, they have like some part of them knows it's bullshit, right? And it's all a shit test, you know? And they're all just like, so they have to dress it all up in this like Marxist freaking garbage, right? Because they know that they're full of shit and that it's all a bunch of fucking lies, right? But like with South Korea, there's none of that. There's not even the pretension of like trying to pretend that any of this is logical or makes sense. It's literally just stating the conclusion in such a loud and emotional way, and then knowing they can get away with it because vagina. And like, you know, from a white person's perspective, we tend to assume that Asians are gonna be like smarter, but feminism is a case where like the Asians are definitely not smarter. Or at the very least, there's less of like the sophistry involved. In a way, I like Korean feminism because it's so much more honest and it just lays bare everything that's just completely stupid about feminism. So I've prepared a number of items here. I'm pretty excited about this because I feel like I've learned a lot, and this is gonna be pretty fun. Just give me a moment here to get my Hangouts window. I'm running a minute behind, so I'm kind of frantically getting myself caught up here. You guys like that fucking Eurobeat remix of Gangnam Style? I found that a couple of days ago, and I don't know, that was the highlight of my week. I don't ask for much. Oh my gosh, I need to catch up with the chat. Forgive me. Give me a moment here. I just need to crop. Oh, Shit, the fucking Hangouts link is on the stream. Nobody abused that. Fuck. Whatever. Shh! Don't tell anyone. I know that the people who show up within the first few minutes are all cool. I don't have to worry about anybody fucking sabotaging the stream by showing up because I have the Hangouts link showing right away. I tweeted out a link to this with a bunch of South Korean feminist hashtags. I don't know. If like some random Korean feminists come in here and get upset with me. That'd be a great show, wouldn't it? I'd like that. That'd be pretty funny. I don't think they're gonna go for it. The video on the screen now, this is one that someone in the server posted, and I watched it just last night. I gave them a dislike. I'm like that petty and mean-spirited that I don't know. I disliked the video because I thought it was stupid. Okay. All right. Thanks for waiting for a moment here. So I'm gonna back up here. Feminism in Korea is half obsessed with workplace gender equality nonsense stuff. Yeah, that was one of the things I saw. There was a particular hashtag related to like factory work, and I don't know. I find that there is a gendered component to factory work. At least in America, right? It was during wartime. We had all the women doing the factory work. And I was actually listening to a Stoltenberg essay where he was the unironic argument was he was quoting another feminist, and I forgot which one it was, but she was like, it might have been Robin Morgan. I'm not sure which one. We'll find out. I think that's in part 2, the stream I'll be doing in a few days here. But they were unironically like, well, when men went off to war, women stepped up and ran society when we took their place in the workforce. And it's like, you literally can't make that argument without implying that the people who run and manage and make your society work are men by default, and women only did it during fucking wartime. But like, feminists are so solipsistic that like that argument isn't obvious to them, and at this point it's like adorable. You know, maybe a few decades ago, you give people a pass. I don't know. I mean, even at that point, that's I think very, very generous. Let's see. Those writers are typical of your average Korean American trying to write about their roots for their dissertation, but totally misunderstanding what actually the goings on are. Dude, that's a thing. Okay, so many of these Korean feminist issues, it's like Korean Americans or like Korean studies experts at Harvard, right? And it's like there's a huge difference between Asians and Asian Americans. Sorry, I'm gonna go full Biden here. If you're Asian American, like you're like born in America, and like you look Asian, but you're born in America, you're way more like an American than you are like an Asian. Like it's literally night and day difference between an actual Asian person born and raised and living in Asia compared to like westernized people. And the fact that you have these types like what was her name? Sui Park, right? That girl who was on Colbert. This was almost a decade ago, and she like tried to make this whole stink about how since she's Asian and woman, she's double oppressed, and it's like no, those you're privileged because of both of those things. Like I'm sorry, like even with the whole beer virus drama, the argument that there's all this anti-Asian racism. It's so thin. And like so many people have been frothing at the mouth and just waiting for an opportunity to jump on like an anti-Asian racism narrative that this is the best they've got. This is the best it's gonna get. But in general, no, in general, people like the Asians. Well, I guess white people. Asians don't, right? All the Asians are like the most racist against each other. Very particular. I guess a lot of black people don't like Asians. But besides that, I mean, compared to other races, it's no. Just no. It's just no. Actually, I woke up literally 30 minutes ago. I set an alarm and I woke up. I'm not even joking. I woke up 30 seconds before the alarm went off, and I felt like a psychic. It was quite strange. And I woke up from like a deep sleep. Like I was in a dream, and in the dream I remembered I needed to wake up. And that was so that's what I'm coming off of right now. But I've made myself a couple of instant commoner's coffee, so I think we'll be getting through just fine. Okay, so Razor Gay Candy said South Korean men are drafted against their will for 22 months while women aren't. People there don't seem to think this is a problem. Yeah, well, it's an issue that a lot of people bring up as a talking point. And yes, that's something that it's probably the clearest gender inequality they have there is in law. Men are second-class fucking citizens. There's other things related to that too, right? There's women who have they have special stairs and special subways. It's fucking gay. And I guess the housing and also the amount of money that men versus women are expected to pay for marriages. Those are the concrete gender inequalities that we see. And a lot of the conversation hones in on some of those things. Okay, let me go ahead and throw my link out to some compadres. It's been a while since I've had some compadres on the stream. Okay. I'll keep running through. I'm almost caught up here. We have South Korean MRAs that make a lot of noise about that, actually. Yeah, exactly. But I don't really care because I haven't had to do it. Yeah, Korea man, I guess, did you just dodge that? Are you a South Korean draft dodger? That's why you fucked off to China? Is that the story? Glad South Korean MRAs are talking about it. Needs to be fixed. Razor Gay Candy, I found an AVFM interview with a South Korean man from 2013. And it was an interview they did right after that famous Korean MRA jumped from the bridge as a publicity stunt and ended up dying. And actually, I have his Wikipedia here, so I'm going to look through some of that here. Oh my gosh, I'm not wearing my glasses. No wonder I can't read. I'm legally blind without glasses. I don't even know how I did that. This guy, Sung Jae-gi. I don't know. I never learned how to pronounce Korean names. Japanese names, it's pretty easy to get a good approximation. Even Chinese names, if you know a little bit of pinyin, you can kind of figure out how to pronounce Chinese names. I don't know the trick to Korean names. It seems a little bit more difficult. So I'm gonna be butchering a lot of names. No apologies. Get easier names to not be butchered. Let's see. A South Korean men's rights activist and anti-feminist. I'm not just gonna read the Wikipedia to you. You guys can go to the Wikipedia if it's something that you want to look into. Yeah, so he was advocating for the abolition of the Minister of Gender Equality and Family. So what's interesting is his group was explicitly anti-feminist and was explicitly critical of a lot of things the government was doing in the name of gender equality. And his story, when I heard about it, it reminded me so much of the Earl Silverman story, because it sounded like he was trying to finance a group that would focus on men's issue. And also, let's see, counseling to battered husbands, households, teenage runaways. I'm not sure if he was trying to... Yeah, he opened a shelter, too. Yep, just like Earl Silverman did. Tried to open a shelter for homeless people and male victims of violent crime. I'm not sure if it's the same culture where we try to make shelters for domestic violence victims. But with Earl Silverman, the Canadian government deliberately, and I say deliberately, this wasn't like an administrative error or anything. They specifically set things up so that one group could pass off responsibility to the other back and forth in an endless loop, such that he would never get his funding. And then Earl Silverman committed suicide, allegedly. This is the theory. He did it so that his suicide letter would, in theory, become a part of the public record, so that his story could be promoted. And his story, this guy, 𝙎𝙬𝙢𝙬 it seems very similar. He was trying to fund, things like shelters for men, and this was an attempt to get more attention so he could potentially get more funding, which is he jumped off a bridge, and he ended up not surviving, which is obviously quite sad, because I guess he was married with 2 daughters. So anyway, that's very sad. But so AVFM had an interview following this, and I just listened to that. And what's interesting about it is that obviously it's from 2013, so God, things have changed so much since then, so little and so much.
Hello.
Ashley's here. Yeah, nice to see ya. How's it going?
It's good. It's cool to see that we're finally doing the Korea Boo stream.
Yeah, I in hindsight we should have done it earlier, but man,
Yeah.
I've just been looking through these things all day, and like the more I stare at it, the more terrible it is. It's like a cartoon, which I get it. Like all feminism's a cartoon, but it's like hard to. I'm trying to find the
It's
words.
even. It
It's-
seems even. It seems even worse than the West. To
I
be
know,
honest.
and when you say it seems worse, it's like hard to express what that even means. Like I
Yeah.
was trying to explain this to other people, and they're like, "What do you mean it's worse? Like how can you get worse?" And it's like you just gotta stare directly into it. So that's the goal of this stream, is to give people a sense of that.
Yeah. So are we live, by the way?
Yes, we are live. I've been
Cool.
rambling for about 15 minutes, getting caught up.
Yeah, I mean, it looks as though they're going through sort of a super compressed version of what we have in the West. Because, like, I think, hold on, I'm just checking, I'm getting the number right. Yeah, so South Korea wasn't even a democracy formally, I don't think, until the Sixth Republic, which was in 1987. It's crazy to think that this is a country that was a military dictatorship a few decades ago, and now all of the narrative that we have in the West about, that we've been dealing with for 100 years, coming from feminist academia, they've just, I don't really want to imported, doesn't feel like the right word, but it's basically all of the same notes, all of the same basic.
It is like
talking points.
imported, though. That I think that is probably the right term.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the
No,
reason
and
I
that's
was
the thing. Like the observations you had told me about.
I mean, the
as
reason-
I was looking through, I was like, "Oh my god, this actually is totally accurate." It is like they just lifted the talking points without any of the like pretension, right? There's all this Marxist
Yes,
pretension
yeah.
behind normal feminism, but with this, it's literally just like they realized, wait a minute, like we're women, we can just cry and complain and scream and get what we want, and then they just do it, and there's no there's no like attempt
Yeah,
even.
I don't
It's
think
shameless.
I don't think it's very widespread in the university system there, and that probably makes a very important difference, because what we have in the West is that, like, you get genuinely intelligent people with IQs of like 130 and above. Doesn't mean they have good intentions, of course, but genuinely intelligent people who created all of this critical theory and so on. I don't mean the current professors. I mean like the originators of the theory, the Frankfurt School and all this, I guess, going back to that sort of thing. But with this, it's like it's not pervasive in the school system. It just comes from internet subculture and copying the West, and just copying the most like superficial behaviors with none of the, like you say, the academic pretension. And so it's like, one woman was stabbed in a train station or something one day, and therefore this is like an indictment of males in general.
Well, okay, did
And
you
that's-
look into the 2016 Gangnam murder? 'Cause
No,
that's-
You told
Okay,
me about that.
yeah. Okay, so I was reading through. I think that's the one you're referring to. This is a different one, but so this is fascinating. Actually, there was a schizophrenic man, right? He had been treated multiple times, and at different points, like in institutions, for his mental problems. And eventually, he was back out living on his own, and he had medications, stopped taking them, and like obviously suffered some kinds of delusions. And because he specifically like waited in this karaoke bar for the opportunity to murder a woman, and because he had delusions about the way like women treated him, people tried to make it like a misogyny issue. But like the issue with it is that there was no like logical consistency to it. And the whole idea behind claiming something is like a hate crime is that you have some sort of view in society that's like prevalent, such that people make a connection that's going to put that group at risk. But if somebody's literally a fucking crazy person, right? Like there's no logical reason that you would make that same kind of argument, because he could have hallucinated it was like people who are blonde haired or gingers or people with like blue eyes, and like there's an arbitrariness and a disconnectedness to the mental health, such that like making this about women was like a total stretch and like completely stupid. And even a lot of these like Korean feminist academics were saying, well, since the whole culture is talking about women's issues now, it's important. And it's like even a lot of them have retreated to like this like larger narrative. But yeah, basically the incident in a nutshell was that this 34-year-old employee of a liquor store entered the karaoke bar toilet and stabbed a woman 4 times and murdered her. And he's clearly a crazy person. He didn't like try to escape any punishment or anything. It was pretty easy to piece it all together. Yeah. So
I just wanted to quickly clarify something a bit earlier that might not have been clear. The only reason I was reluctant about using the word imported is because one hesitates to say that a country like Saudi Arabia is going to culturally import readily from the United States. I know that the governments of Saudi and the US are allies in some sense, but you know what I mean? Like, culturally, you would think they could hardly be more different. The historical precedent there, that kind of like hardcore Middle Eastern style conservatism. And yet it appears to be the case, even there, that feminism is taking root there as well. It might be slower, I guess, than in countries that are already where these trends have already been well dug in for decades. But it looks as though, it's basically just going to be any wealthy country. This is just what happens when you have any kind of wealth in your country and women start to participate more in public life. You get the sort of steady degeneration.
Yeah, and it's all framed, right, as we're fighting the patriarchy. But like, I'm sorry, I don't fucking buy it in Asia. In Asia, like it's like patriarchy just means you have some kind of family value. It's not even like these Islamic cultures or anything. There's not even like a point. Like it seems like in terms of this narrative of like if we're gonna judge societies based on how they treat their women, it seems like Asia wins. Like Asia, they seem to treat their women generally fairly well, particularly in modern times, even under like this so-called traditional thing. And rather than actually responding to like real issues in so-called patriarchy, instead it's almost like they're perceiving a weakness and then just opportunistically capitalizing on it.
Yeah, and it's the same with Europe as well historically. Like as far as that, well, similar, I mean, but you know what I mean, the treatment of women and so on. But like I remember seeing this like woman on TV. She was talking about that the subject of the program was declining fertility or whatever in South Korea, sub 1 TFR, etc. And like she was saying that South Korea is still very conservative because it was something like society has a difficult time accepting in Korea that men are going to take part in the homemaking role, like sort of that motherly role. And I thought, is it that, or is it that they don't have a very like extensive welfare system and they want men to provide for women, and that's why they have a hard time imagining it?
Yeah, okay, so that's another part of it too, is
Hey.
like, oh hey, so I want
Hi.
to acknowledge Toto and Fleegan are in here too.
Awesome. I was just
We
wondering
got-
if my mic was working.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, is that when I did the last stream, I was like, okay, I have all of this material to kind of run through, and I want to just make a stream that's gonna be like a somewhat reasonable time frame with not too many, not too much like extra, right? So I decided like those ones I have to just do them by myself. But then by the end of it, I realized like, oh, it actually I miss like talking to people. So I think 2 streams per week is gonna have to be the usual until I finish that terrible fucking book, which has been amazing to go through.
They're refusing to be a man.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Like in the second part, he literally argues that male sexual identity is based on domestic violence.
Oh my god.
And war is homoerotic.
What?
And fetuses are penises. And like it's insane. And I just listened to most of the third part.
War is homoerotic?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he
What?
makes quite an interesting case. So it's fascinating. It's crazy enough that like that I
Jesus.
can't look away. But now in the third part of it, he's talking about porn and how. And one thing I didn't realize I needed in my life until I had it is text-to-speech robot voices reading violent sadomasochistic pornography. It's like anyway, if you want to
Sounds
hear that
interesting.
on my BitChute, I have the parts up there. That was Fleegan's idea. Is like instead of putting videos up and having them unlisted and then hoping you don't get copyright strikes that nuke your channel, why don't you just put it on BitChute? And I was like, oh, in hindsight, that's quite obvious and a very good idea. Also Terrence.
You thought of it in time.
Yeah, oh yeah, I suppose eventually. Also, nice to see Terrence. Terrence, I think you must have made a new account because I noticed that you subscribed to my channel, and I thought, I'm pretty sure I didn't offend Terrence such that he would have like unsubbed and then had to resubscribe later. And I'm pretty sure I gave Terrence a wrench before. I wonder if Terrence has been up to no good and now he's on a new fucking burner account. But let me think here. What was the? Sorry, I got a little distracted. But I have my notes. I have notes of all the talking points I want to get to. Oh, okay. So, Sung Jae-gi. The reason I wanted to give some background on him is because this actually segues into what might be the emotional intelligence highlight to end all fucking emotional intelligence highlights. Is anyone aware? Do you guys want to guess what it might be related to that Korean MRA?
Weren't there people threatening his family or like his children or something? I can't remember. But
Okay, I'm not. Oh, I got not to look into that too. Damn, that's a good guess. What I have though in terms of emotional intelligence, it might be even worse than that. It's that radical Korean feminists. They made like a pun of his name because it sounds similar to the phrase like go kill yourself. And they chant this at their protests if they like perceive anyone to be anti-feminist or like pro men's rights. Is that they literally have a fucking slur that says go kill yourself and it's like based on his name. Like, Can you believe that? I know, it's like
I mean, I can, but it's
of
brutal.
course we can, but god damn, like it's the kind of shit that like you point out, right? And it's the kind of stuff feminists at least have enough of a self-awareness to disown, but these radical Korean feminists, damn, there's none of that. So
Yeah, well, maybe we
The
just
thing is,
missed it with our feminists because the
Why
Black
do you
Lives
think that
Matter
there's-
movement had like these chants where they talk about killing cops, right?
that's true. Yeah, they said, "What do we want? Dead cops." and something about pigs or whatever. God, and now BLM's gotten more momentum because that stupid cop had to kill a black person, and like I'm only upset by it because now like all these people who want to talk about race all the time, like now they have like a second wind and they've just been waiting for an opportunity to like have an excuse to pretend that these are real issues that aren't actually just gendered issues in disguise. And as I said, like the Ahmaud Arbery one, like that was like that was already like very very stretched, right? But this new one is like actually okay. Like yeah, we have the video. The cop literally just like murdered a dude because like they're fucking incompetent.
So wait, what did the guy do? If I might ask, the black dude, or is it was it the cop being incompetent?
So the new one is what's his name? George. Let's see. Minneapolis cop kneels on black man. His name. I should find his name. But anyway, it was the what's this? Well, here's the video on the screen. It's the guy kneeling on him. What's the? I don't get the victim's name.
Okay.
His name is. Why is it so hard to find? Minneapolis cop kills man. But anyway, like literally they're detaining this guy, and this cop just like puts his knee on the guy's neck, and he's just like sitting there. And it's
I see it.
What and it fuck? Goes on for like minutes too. Like I could kind of see doing that for like the 30 seconds it takes to cuff him. But there's like 6 cops there, or 4 cops or whatever, some plural number of cops. And apparently, his name's George Floyd. That's his name, George Floyd. So we got the name on there.
Did this hurt him or kill him or?
Yes. The guy goes unconscious, and bystanders are like, "Dude, get his pulse," and the cops are like, "No," and it's like, dude, like. It's literally like the sky parted and gave the BLMers the evidence they never had, and now they finally have it. And I'm just annoyed because now like they're gonna turn fucking Minneapolis into Ferguson because they're retarded.
Right. And they'd never do this to a black woman. Like that's
absolutely not.
Ever.
I think the closest they had to this was the whole Sandra Bland or whatever, and it's like no, it's like that was a desperate argument and always has been. But yeah, so all these race vultures are gonna come out and talk about how we need to stop police racism against the blacks, and fucking radio silence from these people when we talk about men's issues. Because they're a bunch of opportunistics, because anti-racists are like the weakest race, in my opinion, humbly. Anyway. But yeah, so one pattern, sorry, to get back to the main topic here, the one pattern, this is something that Ashley had mentioned when we were talking about these Korean issues, was that a lot of these like movements in South Korean feminism, it's literally based on one story, and then people just decide arbitrarily that it's a social issue, right? And like this Gangnam murder is one of them. An interesting fact.
There was also
There's so many. I have like 5 of them. This is going to be a reoccurring theme. But like, so interestingly though, the homicide statistics have gender parity. I think there's actually slightly more women homicided in South Korea than men. I'm not sure how much it changes if you adjust it for like intentional murder. I'm going to go ahead and guess that then it's more men than women. But it's close to 50-50, and it's almost as though like the moment that stat hit 51% women, that then it became like a major women's issue. So they're like one of the only countries that has more women than men murdered. And of course, any country that has anywhere near 50% female victims of homicide, the homicide rate is like pathetically low. Like, get good. You barely even murder anyone in South Korea. But so what happens is there's literally one incident. We have like literally one woman gets stabbed, and now every woman is like, "Oh my God, I'm not safe at the karaoke bar. I'm not safe walking upstairs. I need my own trains." And like the government gives it to them. Based on one incident, they'll be like, "Yeah, this is
Because they're being
systemic."
paranoid, histrionic bitches.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
well, that's the
wow.
thing, though. That's the thing. You know what, though? Their emotions are real. If they're afraid, how dare you suggest that their fear isn't real?
I don't want to derail too much by talking about Japan, but I do remember they had the female-only train carriages because of something similar in Japan.
I
Well,
mean,
the
yeah,
argument
but
was
like in
that everyone was
Japan,
grabbing their asses. That was the argument.
yeah. And
I
this
wonder
shit
how
isn't
much of that
nearly
was
as
just a
bad.
humble brag. It was just like one woman comes out, she's like, "Every single day my ass gets grabbed," and then all of her friends have to be like, yeah, me too, totally." And then it just spreads like wildfire. Because you don't want to be the one woman whose ass doesn't get grabbed on the train.
Yeah, in Japan, they're a lot more. They do have some feminism, but they're a lot more like polite about it, I guess. Also, like, I think in Japan also your abortions are actually federally like tracked. So like if you get like abortions, like everyone knows that you're a deadbeat. No one wants to talk to you.
Is it like a
So-
public record? You could just go
Yeah.
to like
I'm pretty sure.
japangovernment.com/who's a thought and just like see all the abortions and what the reasoning
Yeah.
is.
I
Wait,
think I'm
is
pretty
this
sure.
like when in school
You know,
they have
federally
like
tracked
great public, then they also do that for abortions. Japan
Yeah,
is a
apparently my
wonderful
friend
country.
lived in Japan, and that's what they said. I have yet to confirm it, but I have no reason to doubt them.
It's
But-
way funnier if you just imagine that they take the abortion and then like stick a microchip on it, and then as it like goes down the drain, like they're, I don't know.
I think it would be
I don't know why I
excellent.
think
It's a
that's
great
funny.
idea, though.
I have the worst
It's
sense of
literally-
humor, but I think
It's
that's funny.
literally amazing. I love it because
Do you think that could be a good animated TV show? It's like all of the abortions are tracked and then they're all like living together in the sewers. And it's like
Whoa.
a comedy, but they're all abortions. It's like
That's-
abortion, but funny.
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
very high IQ there, Derek.
Dumpster Baby 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Family Guy prom night dumpster baby thing. That was a classic.
But yeah, I think it's amazing. I think we should have that system if we're gonna have abortions legal because like it shouldn't be
It's definitely in the public interest, or in men's interest at least.
yeah.
Jeremy's
I think it's amazing.
swooping into the chat to give us some more info. He said an Asian woman wrestler killed herself recently. I wonder if she was Korean, then we're gonna see a fucking hashtag about how suicide is a huge feminist issue. I wonder what the suicide stats. Suicide.
Oh, I think it's one of the highest on Earth in Korea.
Gender. Well, I don't care about the
Yeah, in
number. I just
Korea.
want to see the gender breakdown. Oh, why is this global? I want the countries. This is gonna be too hard. This is too much work. They mentioned something about China. I mean, the reason I'm interested in this is because I thought for sure there wasn't gonna be gender parity in the homicide rates. But so maybe Asia will surprise me. Oh yeah, so here they map the female ratio, so we get close. Obviously, none of these get to the point. Like the lowest number is where you have gender parity, and I guess China gets close. China gets pretty close. Looks like South Korea has the middle of it, the middle green. So they're not as dark green as America, but they're not as light green as China. Which is pretty typical. Usually they fall somewhere between China and America. It seems about where it should be. But anyway, I just had to double check that like the South Korean women had no argument to argue that like suicide was a women's issue. Anyway. But that's the thing, yeah, is that like so you have this Gangnam murder, and therefore all these women decide, and this is another emotional intelligence highlight. So a woman gets murdered by a schizophrenic dude, right? And all these women set up like a like a bunch of post-its and a bunch of like display talking about their own issues of sexism and how afraid they are on their little post-it notes and shit, and then turn it into this big thing where it's like, oh, this is totally gendered when it's kind of not. It's kind of a one-off, like, crazy person thing. And, like, how fucking disrespectful is that? To use a person getting murdered as an opportunity to try to make it about yourself and your vagina. So now
Wow, it's almost like it's like they actually don't care and they just want the excuse to have histrionic fits.
And the crazy thing is, we haven't even talked about WOMAD, which I guess it's woman and mad. Let me see, WOMAD. Their website is like stupid and spammy. Let me see. I don't want this festival. I want WOMAD in Korea, but they're like a radical feminist group based in South Korea. And they're, like, known for being, I guess, particularly toxic, like, particularly radical, I guess, is the argument.
Autistic.
Ooh, desecration of Catholic sacramental bread. I haven't read this. They fucking... What, are they poisoned the Christ wafers? Did they poison the Christ checks? Let's see, on July 10th, 2018, wrote...
Like, my first thought was period blood, but poison would be better. I would prefer poison.
The post was curse-ridden, calling Jesus a rapist, and contained a picture of the burnt host. Like,
What the fuck?
why do they... What's the argument that Jesus was a rapist? I'm about as anti-Christian as you get. I understand a lot of people, don't like that, that's fine. But I don't make the argument Jesus is a rapist. Is it just like it's like a reflex?
you see when Jesus was being circumcised, one of the women's were raped with their eyes. So there you go. They got visually raped.
Is that it?
Yeah. Okay, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So according to the poster claimed that the very first human was female. There's no argument here. But yeah, so they do shit like this. I guess they're kind of like femin in some ways. I doubt that they have like the same displays. I don't think they don't have the artistic merit of femin.
Well, femin was the one in Russia, right? Or am I mistaken?
They were active in the Vatican too. But yeah, they're the ones where like basically just gives women an excuse to run around naked and shove crucifixes up their ass.
Yeah, because I remember like I think they were like protesting like in an Orthodox like a Christian church in like Russia. I think it was Femin. I'm not completely sure though. And basically like the freaking police there basically beat them up, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I thought was funny. And they also beat up the cock that was with them. And I didn't really think that it was them until I looked or heard the name Femin.
It's another pattern. There's also like that. Remember, I think it was in either Argentina or Brazil, where there was a bunch of abortion advocates who were like desecrating a church, and like all of the Christians came to their church to like make a wall to defend their church from being vandalized by these like women who are just like screaming at men, grabbing them, spitting in their face, all that kind of stuff. It's a constant theme. It's like a global perennial theme of the radical feminists that they like to target churches, and the optics of that are terrible. Like even I think those optics are terrible. And I'm like, I have the worst optics of like anyone, and even I'm just like, guys. Let me see. But yeah, I don't really know much in particular about this group except like based on their reputation. Oh, I guess they split from another group called Megalia. What's Megalia? I did do some research, but I guess the rabbit hole goes deeper. So Magalia also identifies as radical feminist, and I wonder what their split was over. Sorry. But it's funny because the whole conversation about feminism in South Korea, it is like a time capsule. Because I don't really see, I haven't seen much evidence of there being like hardcore anti-feminists in South Korea. It's more of like people who, they believe feminism, went off the rails at the third wave, right? Feminism was doing fine and then it took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, right? And now they're kind of softly trying to only condemn the radicals and trying to be reasonable because they haven't caught on to the fact that this is not a force to be reasoned with at all. And you get a sense of that too, in that it was this interview that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. Oh, not this one. The one from AVFM from like 2013. With a Korean man discussing it. It's kind of adorable, right? Because like he's listing the men's issues in South Korea, and he's like, we have to pay more for marriages, and the numbers are it's something like women are expected to pay 35,000 and men are expected to pay like 42,000 or something, some difference of some thousands of dollars. And I just imagine like you put that money in front of a man who has to go through like the Western family courts, and he just like rolls his eyes like, oh, that's it, like that's adorable, right? Because it's just like it's like in a time capsule. It's like they haven't realized just like how horrible it actually is, and that you can't take feminism at face value. It's all a shit test, and it's all just opportunism. This channel is interesting, though. Do you guys know about this channel, Peach Yogurt Gender Free?
Oh yeah, I remember seeing this video. She's like a TERF, like radical feminist, right?
Is she a TERF? Okay, I couldn't tell because she seemed like a tranny to me, but I guess she's just a butch lesbian.
That's a woman. That's a lesbian.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so I was
Midoriya
like,
from Dragon Ball Z.
I was watching. She did a video like the TERF Awards and gave an award to Jessica Yaniv, and I'm sitting here like it seems like you're making fun of TERFs, but also making fun of Jessica Yaniv. But how you like? It's like you got to choose one. Anyway, I was confused. But if she actually is a TERF, then it's like, oh, like she doesn't mean to make fun of TERFs. Like she's owning the label, which is fine. That's fine.
But the accidental comedy of some of the things that these people do makes it really hard to tell. Like, there's a term for that where you can't tell parody from reality.
Oh, it's what's the word? It's a Poe.
It's Poe's law.
Yeah. But anyway, this interview with these South Korean women, like...
Oh, was it with the Radfems? Or...
Yeah, with the Korean Radfems. I should say, yeah, I should make the distinction, actually.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they looked exactly as you would expect them to, didn't they?
Well, because they're all escape the corset types, right? Where they get the lesbian bowl cut, But one thing that struck me about the interview is she was talking to one of the women, and she was like, well, since I follow the movement, I cut my hair this way because I don't want to be seen in this way. I want to be free from all those expectations. But my friend who also thinks this way, she still likes to dress super pretty because she likes having the influence and the fact that men treat her this and that way. And it's like they know full well that they get privileged special treatment for looking like pretty women, right? And that I don't. It doesn't stop them, Color me shocked. They don't stop and introspect or realize.
They would still get privileged special treatment regardless of their fashion choices. I think probably the reason they don't, if they don't, is because men are inclined to avoid them for obvious reasons. They don't have many interpersonal interactions with them in the first place because of their ideology.
Well, actually, that reminds me of the PENCE rule. The PENCE rule is See, I thought the only people who actually used the term PENCE rule were people in MGTOW circles. I thought that in normie spheres, people didn't like phrase it in that way and refer to it as that thing. But I guess in the South Korean media, they literally are referring to it the PENCE rule. And That was a
think there's-
fascinating video.
Yeah, I think what's happening here is that I think because they're never really called out on this, this is a mental block that, well, I might have some special privileges when I look pretty, but because they're men, they will always have it better than what I have. Like they just have that in the back of their mind or as an excuse. So that's why they just don't think about it.
I mean,
think
even
that's
this,
like
yeah,
that's-
even this
there's an
butch
analogy-
lesbian turf, even she's gonna get the female treatment, even
There's
though she
an
doesn't
analogy for them.
present feminine. Like the fact that people know that she's a woman, even though they perceive her as a more masculine, more butch woman that they're not attracted to. Like still, the fact that she's a woman has like a novelty to it, and there's still a privilege there. Like I'm sorry,
There's,
if you're a woman, you can't escape it.
an analogy that I use to describe the differences between men's and women's value or between different types of women. I don't really emphasize the difference between unattractive women and attractive women so much, because while it probably is true in a way that's noticeable to women, the treatment they see when they're attractive versus unattractive, it's like the difference between a giant mountain and a somewhat smaller mountain in terms of like the amount of value that they have, like Mount Everest versus K2. And then men is just like a little
Maybe a
molehill.
hill.
Yeah.
A hill.
I-
If you're a
I would say
Chad, if you're a
about the-
Chad, it's a hill. If you're an incel, it's a fucking valley. It's opposite.
Yeah.
Fleegan, what were you gonna say?
Oh, Valley. You took the words right from my mouth.
Oh, sorry, I just stole it.
So, Derek, I don't know if you heard about this. I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was this Korean idol. I think he was a rapper, 𝙆𝙬𝙧𝙚𝙢, who made some edgy comments about conscription. Like there was a line of...
Was this part of the whole rap battle, or was this separate? Because there was this awful, cringy back and forth rap battle between these coffee shop anti-feminists and the mainstream feminist establishment.
Rap battles.
I
It was
don't...
awful. I hated it.
I don't know the context to it. I just I know he jokingly referenced conscription and said that women should be forced into the draft as well if they want equality. Words to that effect. And so yeah, he was excoriated for that and so on. It was funny.
Excoriated.
Well, because that argument is like it's unbeatable and perfectly logical, and therefore the only way to combat it is to be hyper emotional.
Yeah,
There's not even yeah.
Asian Boss did a video where they went around Seoul interviewing young women. Usually, like they were with their boyfriends, just walking around shopping and whatever, and they were asked about feminism, and then they asked the men stuff, and the men said, one of the guys said that women just take it for granted that men have to serve the country, and then his girlfriend, who was a feminist, justified male-only conscription in terms of tradition. She was interested in defending tradition in that regard. But yeah, that's like something that you see a lot as well, the way that there's no consistent principle to it. Like they'll say that they're against tradition in one breath, and then something like this comes up, equal responsibility. It's not a concept that they're especially au fait with.
Well, and that's the thing, is that in white Western feminism, they'll argue, well, the reason men are conscripted or drafted is because of patriarchy. It's men who did it, right? They have like a ready-made like little excuse to get themselves out of it, because they understand there's an inconsistency and that they have to explain it away. But with these South Korean feminists, it's like they're just like, well, that's tradition, so fuck you. Like they don't even try, and that's what makes it so much funnier.
Well, to be fair, the case in Switzerland 7 years ago when we voted about abolishing conscription, it was the women whose vote tipped the balance towards keeping it the way it was. So the feminists can't really use the argument of patriarchy anymore, because it was literally women voters that keep this up.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the other argument too. But then they argue, well, the only people we have available to vote for are men, so it's still men's fault or something.
Oh no, that was direct democracy. Like we actually had a people's vote on
Oh,
that.
so the no representatives. So okay. Well,
It was
so then
just
how do they? So how do they say they're not responsible then if they have
they
the majority
avoid
of the
the
votes?
conversation. They just
Oh.
change the topic. You know how they do that.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe they'll have to take after the South Korean. I guess yeah, that's. Can you imagine how horrifying it'll be when feminists realize they can just do what the South Korean feminists are doing? I can't decide if that's preferable or not because it's at least more honest. There's less
their
bullshit.
behavior
Would be
that is
identical.
the South Korean feminists. Well, I was gonna say that it comes across as very low IQ, but then you're right that would be more honest because that's even feminist theory. That is basically what it boils down to. It might require a moderately intelligent person to come up with all these academic justifications for things, these wild theories. But at the end of the day, it's just dross. There's nothing really there. So it is more honest in that sense, sort of distilling the bullshit down to an elixir.
Well, yeah, because so much of anti-feminism is that like we're kind of doing this bullfight where we're like trying to step into their world and their sophistry and engage with their arguments, and then we think if we can just make the right logical argument, you red pill some people that way. Like there's not nothing to be said for that. But it largely it is kind of a distraction. Like there is kind of a point to it where we have to deal with this reality where we say like look, like you need to stop just saying that you're entitled to things. Like we have to acknowledge the obvious double standards here and the lies and the manipulations. But of course, I think that women they're just going to say like, no, we have the sexual market value to literally just make these demands and say fuck you. And that's kind of the attitude of these South Korean rad femmes, but it's also the attitude of like dumb like Twitch thoughts, right? Twitch thoughts and OnlyFans girls who like they're obviously very vapid, and you'll find these clips of them being like, so the reason men should still pay is because blah 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 blah, and like they'll make some totally inane argument, and then they talk for long enough that people think it made sense,
Well, the one I've heard is because for you're talking about men still paying for dates and stuff, like
or whatever it is, like.
Well, the counter argument I've heard to that most commonly is that women have to spend money on makeup and clothing, so that's their investment.
Oh my god! And that was that was in the interview with these rad femmes. One of them made the argument that we have to invest in our appearance. I have to spend $200 a month on all my makeup. And it's
the problem with that is that it's completely self-inflicted. Like I'm not denying that spending that much money on makeup and etc. is expensive, but it's completely self-inflicted. Men aren't demanding that they do that. Like, for me personally, like, I can't imagine caring terribly, if someone just shows up with no makeup and just, their normal day clothes that they use for sitting around the house. I mean, I don't care, especially.
Oh yeah, they're not dressing for men. They're dressing for women. Yeah, they're dressing for. That was the other thing too. I remember that that image, that screenshot I had put in the Discord. I'm gonna grab it real quick. I'll just grab it.
Oh god, I remember this. Yeah.
How far up do I have to scroll? I think not very. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I'm just gonna. I'll just share a screen really quick in the Hangouts. Where's the button? I haven't done a share screen in Hangouts in forever. Oh, this isn't going to be a big enough window, actually. Oh my god. Why don't you just hard?
Why don't you just
read
say
it?
what
It was Hannah Berner. She says, "Men, I want a girl with big boobs but tiny waist but huge ass and have no hair below their eyebrows and always have their nails done and look beautiful but without too much makeup." And women say, "I want a guy who's tall." And then men say, "Wow, that's so fucked up. We can't control that." And like it's funny because The only man who's gonna sit there and say, "Oh, I think that women should look this way with the big boobs and tiny waist and bangs and their nails done," what kind of man do you suppose would say something like that, if any? But what kind of man do you no what kind of man do you suppose is going to comment on particular hairstyles and fucking having your nails done and the quality of a woman's makeup?
It's just complete disconnect from reality.
Gay homosexual men. So it's as though this woman is like trying to hit on gay men, and she's like, "Oh my god, they keep criticizing my hair. How come men have these unrealistic standards?" It's like, you're trying to hit on gay men. But I mean, obviously, this isn't an actual experience she has. But then
clarify it.
But she's trying to contrast it with height, and then arguing, well, the men are complaining that they can't control their height. But a woman, she can control the size of her boobs, how big her waist is, how huge her ass is. She can get a haircut. She can do her nails, and she can do her makeup. So all the things that she lists as these like horrible beauty standards are things that she actually can control. So even by this own like stupid straw man standard, she built a straw man and can't even defeat it.
You can get leg lengthening surgery, but that's like brutal and insanely expensive. So
yeah,
and it's also a terrible idea. It's also a terrible idea. It'll like fuck up your bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
no.
He gets taller for like 5 years and he has to like fucking cut off his like legs because something went wrong. And then she's just like, well, I have to have like nice nails and a nice haircut. So, you know, this is the same.
I went to get my nails did in the way, and it took like an hour. Okay, I had to just like sit, and I did not realize that. Okay, so fuck you.
But yeah, the reason I said Chad, like I agree with the point Derek made about gay men. When you're talking about these, you know, esoteric makeup related things that only really women and gay men are interested in, I guess. But even when she was talking about like the preferences that men have with regard to women's bodies, like I don't know, breast size and this kind of thing, the hell of it is that like when men say that they have a preference, it's almost always negotiable. The complete opposite to how women have their preferences satisfied, because men just don't have the veto power to be extraordinarily selective in that way, to go out of their way to satisfy every minute little preference that they have about a woman's body or whatever. Like, most men have to just be kind of content with what they can get. And then another criticism I would have, and this applies to both male and female attraction to a certain extent, there's this overemphasis on the body, both in men and women. I think this is true to a degree. So in men, it would be things like bodybuilding, and in women, it would be fixation with how big your ass is or your breasts, etc. I think it's more about the face, to be honest, has more to do with attraction. Like if I like a person's face and they're not a land whale, although those two things are connected, of course, like because how much adipose tissue you have on your face will affect how high your facial attractiveness is. But anyway, yeah. How attractive you are really is kind of delimited by your face, and everything else kind of pales in comparison, in my opinion. So, and then men have extremely low standards with respect to that as well. That is what men would consider facially attractive in women is doesn't even come close to women's sky-high standards. So I don't know if that was coherent.
No, and that's always
been
my take, is that the face is clearly the most important. But I always had this sense that was like an outlier for thinking that, because there is an emphasis on bodies a lot, and I wonder if that's a byproduct of like more like promiscuous cultures. Is that because people are having sex with more people that like you comment on bodies or something, or maybe like the differences in bodies are like more obvious or something? I guess I'm not really sure.
And if we were to use female standards of beauty, women would all be fucking ugly. And incels, basically, so.
Wait, by female standards? Oh, yeah, if they were...
By female standards, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing, because you'd think that, like, among lesbians, right? They'd all have. Well, I guess since their dating pool is small enough, they have to deal with a pseudo male SMV.
Lol.
Which is quite funny. Maybe that's why they're so angry and always beating each other. So there's not enough of them. They realize, like, shit. It's like we're men.
Right.
This is awful.
Why did I have
Did
to
I-
settle for a woman that's not up to my beauty standards?
Did I ever tell you about tranny maxing, Derek?
What's transmaxing?
Tranny maxing. So
I like
basically,
transmaxing.
okay. Basically, if you're a sub 5 male and you are, say, slightly into guys, or you're into guys enough that you could do it with a sufficient incentive, like for instance an incentive such as the dysfunctional state of the current dating market, you can transition into being a woman as like a sub 5 male, and it massively upgrades your value. Like you go from being a sub 5 male to being considered average looking, basically, as a woman. Black Pill Jesus
wow.
did a video about this, and yeah. So basically, there are ugly men where if you transfer their looks into women, if you have like, if it's sort of filtered through a feminine frame, you perceive them as a woman instead of a man, it massively increases their value. And it's speculated that this is like a social trend, that there are a lot of guys doing this I guess to get laid. It's pretty funny.
Well, and
Man, I
I
would
wonder if
never
a lot of
expect
that
anyone to do that.
translates into men just trying to appear a little bit more feminine and a little bit more androgynous as an attempt to just appeal to women. But I guess
I don't think it would be
maybe
an
that's
appeal to women
optimistic.
because
No,
I don't
yeah, I
think
guess
it's
you gotta go
appeal to
full
women.
trap. You gotta go gay.
yeah, because like women really don't like traps or like androgynous men or like even slightly feminine men. Like they want the masculine and Chad and like super like buff like.
Yeah, but they like their
Is it
K-pop
because they don't-
boys. I guess.
mean,
I
yeah,
guess
but that's
we're not
Korean
talking that.
women.
Yeah, but that's the. No, I think a lot of white girls like them too.
I guess, but they might be like a minority. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know, there is.
But these are the most popular groups, and even if you look at like other boy bands, right? Like
Justin
they
Bieber.
don't try to make them particularly like buff and masculine. They make them look like well, I guess
But then
I guess
that raises so many more
not
questions,
pretty, but-
Derek. It makes my brain hurt because then I have to think about what that actually means.
I
Like,
guess
comes to
maybe
female
women kind of
sexuality.
outgrow it. Maybe it's more to appeal to like the much younger, like teeny bopper kind of thing. And they're
I don't
going
know.
to
Like,
prefer...
I'm not convinced of that myself, because like it's not as though Leonardo DiCaprio or River Phoenix maybe would be a good example. Like when he was really young, it's not as though those guys had zero appeal to adult women. Status was probably part of that as well, of course, but then looks also contribute to status as well. So you know what I mean, though? Like River Phoenix, you could almost mistake him for a woman, and the same with Justin Bieber. Less so now, but like, yeah.
But I've
Right.
always wondered,
Point.
is this a natural phenomenon? Because I remember that women kind of told each other, hey, this guy's cute, this guy's attractive. The magazines told them that, the media told them that. Like, are we really sure that without all of this propaganda, women would prefer these girlish young men?
I don't know. I don't want to give the social constructivist angle that much credit. But there's probably something there. But
Maybe I don't
I'm
know.
skeptical.
It just doesn't.
I mean,
make
I only
sense
know
to
the
me.
opposite from personal experience. When one woman in a group finds a man attractive that the others find unattractive, they will talk her out of it. So maybe they can talk each other into it as well.
Maybe.
Huh.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that tweet was she mentioned height, and obviously I'm not going to say that the preference for height in males is a completely culturally constructed preference. Obviously, I highly doubt that, but this definitely was less of an issue in the past. Like, so the issue isn't just that, well, because it's not that women won't date men who are, the same height as them or shorter than them. Because if that was the only issue, it wouldn't be an issue because men are taller than women. But what happens is you get men who are, or women who are short by female standards, like say 5'2", the 10th percentile of female height or something like that, who will refuse to date a guy who's at the 10th percentile of male height, which I guess would be like 5'6". And I think that is a recent phenomenon. I think it is like kind of a status thing. It's a consequence of women having complete control of the dating market.
Yeah, too
Yeah,
many
and-
options. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say there doesn't seem to be much indication of a solution to this beyond beyond like I guess the 𝙆𝙤𝙧𝙚, the 𝙆𝙤𝙧 toolbox of solutions, which
Yeah.
is there's not enough of that, I think, to make an impact, which is the best I can say.
The problem with a lot of 𝙆𝙧 as well, frankly, is that they are kind of like men sent their own way. Considerable numbers of them. To be honest, it's like these middle-aged guys. Balding seems to be or baldness seems to be a consistent thing with them. I've noticed men that most women wouldn't want anyway, like even women their age, probably. so yeah,
Their
I think.
behavior isn't moving any needles.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're all just coping, but it has to be a significant number of them, from what I've seen.
Well, and it's the same issue you have with the incel sphere, which is that since it's a continuum, you have a huge number of them that are not true cells, right? Because like logically, you're gonna have the entire continuous spectrum of people moving towards it, and I think there's something similar with 𝙆𝙧, that at the very end of it, you have some that are, literally gone their own way, but then others who just kind of see that as an alternative.
When you say true cell, like, I take it you're talking about like the kind of people who wouldn't have had success with women in any era, like because they're so hideously deformed or whatever, those kinds of people.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they're like the true incels. They're not, they're not
Well,
just go to
I
the
don't
gym
like-
bro or whatever.
I don't like referring to them as the quote-unquote true ones, because like the society has changed very significantly even within the last 10 years, with the rise of these dating apps and so on, to the extent that, I mean, I'll give you an example. So Face and LMS, he's around 30, and people sometimes call him a fake cell because he beta boxed a single mom when he was in his early 20s or something, like about 10 years ago. But what you've got to remember is that he did that before Tinder existed, and before women's access to men and ability to filter men out, ratcheted up into another gear because of the takeoff of online dating. So saying that he isn't a quote-unquote true incel, I think is unfair, because it's over for a lot more guys now than it was even just 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point, is that there shouldn't be so much gatekeeping with incels, because it is going to be a growing phenomenon over the years. You're going to see a larger and larger percentage of men who are in that sphere. And of course, society doesn't really have any interest in helping them. They only have an interest in. Did you guys see that tweet from that that Canadian anti-hate group that literally put a bounty on doxes for Canadian incels?
Wow.
What?
Yes, they literally had a tweet, and they said, "We'll pay you $300 to expose an incel and make like a write-up of it."
Well,
Ew.
this is the thing that's going to be so like just insanely trippy and dystopian, is that like, so as you say, this problem is going to get worse, that the number of men who are incels is going to grow, but because most people are just going to villainize them, like no kind of measures are going to be taken to help this issue or make it less bad. They're just going to criminalize it. So when it's like, 2040 or something, when, I don't know, 60% of men are incels or something, I'm just pulling that number
I think
out
it'll
of
be
my
more
arse.
than that. honestly.
But you know what I mean. So you know that's what the state of things is going to be, but then it's also going to be like illegal to not have a girlfriend, because then you're an incel
Illegal?
terrorist.
Well, it's gonna be yeah, illegal in effect, right? And it almost kind of is that way. If you don't have a girlfriend, you know, you're lesser in society, and
Yeah, but
you're
just like,
it's open season on you.
do you see what I mean about how crazy this is? Like it's going to be getting harder and harder for guys to have girlfriends, but then at the same time, there's, you know, the only solution, quote unquote, that they're interested in is to basically just treat them as criminals. So it's going to get to the stage where like literally the average guy is a criminal in the eyes of society.
Literally, if you're a woman, you'll be able to keep a harem of men, and for a lot of them, it'll be like a mob boss scenario, right? Where you just like you just say to the man, "Hey, like I'll claim you as one of my boyfriends, so that you can pretend socially that you have a girlfriend." And like women are just gonna form cuctrons, where as a man
Jesus
you're gonna
Christ.
need like your woman to be your protector, to socially pretend, right, that she's somewhat interested in you or something.
I don't need this black of a pill.
Yeah, it's gonna be a growing
God.
culture of sexless relationships where the woman literally just gets to trade on the social power of being a woman.
Oh
We need to
God.
have them sex dolls, yo.
There's gonna be so many squeezed babies.
Is it me, or is it getting crazy out there?
Jeremy's been blowing up the chat, so I want to acknowledge some of the things he's written. People forgot about the Biden not black enough thing pretty quick. I got a take on that. I watched Devin Tracy's recent video on that, and that video completely changed how I view that little controversy. But I want to get to the things that are on the topic before I derail things completely.
Cool.
Let's see. Oh, he asked if there's a problem with women preferring like the Justin Bieber type men, and I obviously I say there's not necessarily really a problem with that, but the observation's important. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's just
is
that
this
it
Korean
confuses
woman
me.
on the screen? Is she cross-eyed? Does she look cross-eyed? I don't think she looks cross-eyed at all. I don't think so.
I think
It's
it has
because of her
something to do with
makeup.
her eyes. Like it has like because they're slanted. Maybe it has that like.
I was gonna say that's just because she's Asian. Those what Asian
Yeah.
eyes look like. Okay, it's not.
No, it's actually her makeup. I just realized she extends the shape of her eyes to the sides to make them look bigger. Therefore, her pupils look too close together.
Oh, maybe that's it. I think we're nitpicking a little. Also, look at her bangs. They go below her eyebrows. Disgusting. No man will ever accept that. She might as well be like a manlet. That's a zero multiplier on your sexual market value, lady. Trim those bangs. He also said incels are like unicorns. I've never talked to one. Well, I had the stream with Richard. He was a real life incel. He is the first person I met who just like straight up identifies as incel and like defends it and speaks to it, which is super cool. But wow, unicorns are gonna get a lot more common. That's the prediction. That's the weather forecast.
So what was the next Korea-related story?
Oh, wait, no, before I get into that, I just wanted to mention the
Okay.
Joe Biden thing, not black enough. Honestly, if you look at the full context of the clip, you can tell that Biden's just doing like a silly kind of banter. And the fact that all these people are jumping on it is just, it's so disingenuous and transparent. Because, like, first of all, Biden's right. He is going to get like 80% of the black vote. So
Yep.
he's not even wrong, okay? And all these conservatives being like, haha, I see Democrats are the real racists. It's like, oh, go fuck yourself. Like, it's such a stupid argument. And I hate all these, like, black people. I don't hate the people. I hate the fact of this social scenario. All these people coming forward being like, well, I'm black. And it's always like, it's like the whitest black women ever. They're super light-skinned. And they talk like this. And they go, I just want to say my name is Shanera. Okay, and I have a MAGA hat, and I am voting for Donald Trump. So, how dare you, Biden? How dare you say I am not black? And it's like, you are the whitest goddamn person ever. Anyway, but it doesn't even matter if they are or not. It's this pretension that, like, black people are, like, uniquely owed something. If people like Charlemagne the God, which is, like, dumbest name ever. My channel is called Spacepan, and I get to call someone's name dumb. That's how dumb his name is. Like,
I mean, Thomas Sowell is also kind of like a black-white person, but
yeah, but he at least talks black and is dark-skinned, and at least you can tell he comes from like a black culture. Like he, you know what I mean? Like he's not like cosmopolitan white the way that a lot of these MAGA conservative Inc. black people are. But anyway.
Yeah.
I just
there is kind of like a coastal city like American race, like populated with all these different groups of elite people, and like that's where these conservative Inc. people come from mostly. Like,
yeah, they're all fake. They seem astroturfy, and they don't even have any real values. They're just it's literally just they want to be the controlled opposition to the Communist Party of America. That's it.
What I was gonna say is that like the people calling him racist for it. So like you said, he will get most of the black vote. Isn't it curious how like it's racist to make a factual observation about how black people behave? You know?
I know, right? No, you're not allowed to make those. Like, how dare you? Because if you observe anything bad, you're saying it's their fault and that it applies to all of them.
Yeah, and then it just gets like the word racist becomes recontextualized into the conservative narrative, even when it makes no sense. And,
yeah, that can also be applied to pretty much any like minority group that has a victim status. Honestly.
Yeah.
Like that, the same thing happens with Jews when you point out, hey, fucking circumcision's bad, and you're a bad person for doing it. You're saying, oh yeah, all Jews, or well, hey, most Jews actually do it anyways. But my point is that it can be applied to many other minority groups, not just black people.
Well, and then I hate it because the implication is that even if it were based in bigotry, some things are more important than bigotry. And not enough people understand that. Yeah, like someone's saying, well, that's racist, and it's like, okay, well, I was talking about murder and rape in society. So let's take a step back and let's say it is racist. Which problem do you think we should combat first? What do you think is more pressing, more relevant, right? Like, and literally the anti-racist mindset, it's completely religious, and they literally don't care about anything besides purging racism from society, and they'll literally murder babies to do it.
Pretty much.
I just
remember that?
I don't know what else to say. Like I absolutely despise anti-racism. It's like it's the worst
I think
meme
I showed
of
you that
all.
guy who killed his family. The article about the guy who killed his family.
Oh yeah, because he thought they were racist. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was an old article, but like still, it just proves the point.
Yeah, that man is
Actually, no, it's
literally.
2020.
That man is every single anti-racist, no exceptions.
Basically.
Like, fuck him. Like, that's all of you. All of you.
Yeah. He literally, oh my god, he killed his 6-year-old brother too. Holy fuck.
Well, did his 6-year-old brother was probably playing on some Minecraft server, dropping some gamer words.
Yeah, so you need to blow his head off with a shotgun.
That's right.
That's right, yo.
And if you kill the racists early, imagine how many gamer words he prevented.
True.
Yeah, give him a Nobel Peace Prize.
One less N-word said.
And another thing that I kind of wanted to say about, individuals, because I want to sort of distinguish the two types of people, or in terms of, political activism. So Thomas Sowell is, like I said, kind of like an elite black person, and he's interested in improving the lot of his people. I think he's wrong about certain things, maybe overly optimistic in some ways. But, he's trying to do that. He's trying to improve the circumstances of black people in a way that he thinks conforms to, observable reality. And he's actually interested in, seems interested in reality, whereas the conservative-ing types of any race are just signaling, basically.
I wonder if Thomas Sowell, after so many years of trying to like calmly, rationally, eloquently state these problems and to get people to understand or whatever, if eventually he's just gonna catch up, get a little black pilled, just go like full blown fucking race realist. He'll be like interviewing Jared Taylor. Like just come and be like, yeah, I tried forever, and you know what? Nope, there's no hope. And like just imagine Thomas Sowell reaching his ultimate form. I don't know, that's my fantasy. That'd be really funny. He has to be getting there. He has to be getting jaded at this point. There's no way he has the optimism he had literally 50 fucking years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he's 89 according to Wikipedia.
God, if he's 89, it's been like 60 years. It's been like 60 solid years of him being who he is and like trying to make the case. And what's happened? Like, the left hates him. The left thinks he's like an Uncle Tom.
Did you know that black people who were born back then, like black people literally born under segregation, are less likely to say that they've been racially discriminated against or that they feel they've been racially discriminated against?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
In the 90s, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
Pretty crazy. Although, I guess not surprising, really.
Yeah.
So, concerning South Korea.
That's right. We'll get back into the topic here. Hello, Red Raptor. Nice to see you again. Epicanthic folds cover the inner corners of the eyes. Yes. The article I have up here. It's a really silly article about some South Korean K-pop stars who get criticized for appearing too feminist. So earlier I referred to feminism as like the establishment, which might be a little bit unfair. It does seem like there is kind of a mainstream backlash against a lot of the feminism, which is good, but
I think there is. It's traditionalist in nature. A lot of it, or so I've heard, or it's like the if it's not that, then it's the same thing we're used to in the West. You know, coffee shop anti-feminism.
And it's like that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and that's the thing I don't like about it is because they're gonna let a lot of female bullshit go unchecked under traditionalism. So I kind of want the conversation to happen so we can get beyond it. But
the thing about
nothing's going to change until men change. Honestly, like
the thing about Korean idol culture as well, and I think this is also true in Japan, is that they don't really want much of the population. And I guess they're vocal enough about this. They don't really want their entertainers to be political. Like, they don't want political pop singers and stuff. Many people understandably find that idea extremely irritating. The idea of pop singers giving them political lectures, which they're not doing, of course. But I guess maybe they see the idols being reading feminist literature and stuff as like a stepping stone to that, which they don't want. And it's not like I don't understand it. It's
Well, that was the thing, is that this girl from Red Velvet, like she was like holding up the wrong book or something. Yeah, Irene, which is it's old lady name. I love old lady names. I think those are the best names.
like Ruth.
Like Ruth, Gloria, Eleanor, Irene.
That's my grandmother's name, Ruth.
Oh, are you the notorious RBG's grandson?
No.
Is she really alive? What's the scoop on that? How many? What body double number are we on? 3, 4? I lost count. I lost count last year.
The only thing the name Irene makes me think of is like Irene Adler from the Arthur Conan Doyle novels. So,
there's a lot of great old lady names. Some of them aren't. Like Agatha is just that's all. That's you're literally, you have to be born a witch to justify that name.
That's
you gotta come out of the womb with some cobwebs on you.
That
They're
means
like, oh, that's Agatha.
that means it's funny you should say that because that means noble or good in Greek.
Nope. Yeah,
Agathos.
that's antiquated too. So there we go.
Yeah.
How appropriate. But it kind of reminds me of the J-pop culture of idols, and which is that like Morning Musume, like their agency, like part of their contract, like very explicitly controls like you're not allowed to date, right? Because they have to be perceived as being like innocent single girls because so many of their fans are males. I don't know if this is the case with K-pop, but
It is.
I think it's in
For the
yeah,
most
I know
part.
in Japan it's particularly bad. Like you go to these like J-pop girl group concerts and it's like a sea of just 90% weeb males who all love these girls, right? Which I mean it's I like you see the inverse with the boy bands, so it makes sense.
Well,
But
in K-pop, from what I can tell, it's the same with both sexes. Like most of the companies don't want them dating.
yeah, and it is
There
like
was
like when you have these high standards for these idols and so many people who all want to do it, then you can make those kinds of demands. Like it just
yeah.
gives you the power to because like you can just find someone else. It would be refreshing to see like a popular pop group that doesn't have those kinds of restrictions and the public accepting that and it being kind of more normalized to like let them be actual people. And like
I mean,
this whole
there are
culture of like they have like roles they have to play where they act in certain like fake kitschy like ways like they're anime characters. It's just it's very stupid, I think.
well, something that happens in a lot of idol groups is that the youngest has to behave a certain way, the mangne, where like they have to. I mean, I guess it probably depends on the company, but it's associated with basically affected displays of cuteness and stuff, even if you're like fucking 21 years old.
I
And
see.
that's kind of like the role that you have to, the public persona that you have to have. It's funny, but yeah, I can't imagine doing it. Like,
I don't know. Being an anime character might be fun.
yeah,
But then the part of it too is like I can totally see how you have your controlled public appearances and you kind of like understand, okay, I'm like playing this role and doing this thing or whatever, and it's kind of like acting. But then like the fact that it's like they're constantly like under surveillance and like any little thing that reaches the public, and even like in terms of social media and stuff like that, when you have like agencies that control your social media because should you post anything out of line of the character, it ruins the whole illusion, and it just kind of exposes how like fake and shallow a lot of this like idol culture is. But yeah, it would be nice to see a lot of that kind of go away. But anyway, yeah.
I
So
think
I guess we have indication that there's quote unquote traditionalism in South Korea, which is gonna get painted as patriarchal, even though it's incredibly gynocentric, like every society, and there doesn't seem to be a willingness to call out feminism at its root of entitlement.
patriarchy is just kind of a magic word that means it sounds like a caricature, but this really is true in my experience from the way the word's used. It's just anything that women are whinging about today for any reason, regardless of the causation behind it, or the history to it, or the context doesn't really matter. It's just if women are complaining about something, it's patriarchy.
That's probably the most succinct definition of patriarchy out there.
Well,
a
which
thing
which
women
makes
complain about is patriarchy.
which makes you wonder what's the point, as many people have done in the MRM, of trying to deconstruct it from sort of a critical theory standpoint, like the way Girl Writes What has done in some of her videos. I mean, her videos are great, obviously, but so like I said, there's this disconnect between feminist theory and just kind of the shock troops. Like the normie feminist types are just the shock troops for a lot of that stuff, and they don't even know the theory to it. It's just I stubbed my toe today, therefore patriarchy, or basically.
Well, who built the door? Who put the door there?
Yeah.
A man. See, it's not that.
Should
that many
ban
steps
doors
away.
now.
Well, yeah, obviously. Some of the doors are made of glass, like the ceilings. It's a conspiracy. I didn't look at this one beforehand. This one you posted in the library. What
Who,
was
me?
this? The Minjung Feminism, Korean women's movement for gender and class liberation.
Class. Okay.
Oh wait, is this about marriage? Is this about mass weddings? That was a thing I saw a little blurb about, which is very funny. Let me see. I guess what is this movement? I don't know much about this. Is this older? Must be this older movement. Oh, this link just goes to the abstract. It says, despite the tenacious grip of sexism in Korea, this is another thing too. In every single article, the whole argument that, oh, there's all this sexism in Korea, there's all this patriarchy, all this traditionalism, women have equal rights under the law, but we're not quite there yet. It's just taken for granted, and there's absolutely no examination of any other side to it. Which is why there's a serious need for anti-feminism in South Korea in
that's why
particular.
I kind of just wanted you to see the abstract for that because it perfectly illustrates what you were just saying. The unexamined aspect to it, like you say. It's impressive.
Yeah. Okay, so Minjung is mass people's movements, and 𝙎𝙧𝙢𝙖𝙢 is women's liberation. So they've put those together. Oh, and this is the young women and factory workers who struggle for basic rights, both challenged the military regime and riveted the attention of the budding, I don't know why I added befuddling, budding democratic movement. In the intersection between gender and class, the women's movement is strongly oriented to women of the urban and rural poor, and within the broader movement, women are seen as the oppressed of the oppressed. I'm assuming with the whole women in factory is it's women doing work that previously was only available to men because basically because men moved on to do other work that only men can do. And then that work got automated and became safe enough to the level that people were comfortable seeing women do it. Or there was like a war, right? And then therefore there was a vacuum there where they needed women to actually like man up and do what normally is expected of men. I'm going to go ahead and guess that the workplace death rate in South Korea is that there's not much gender parity there. Although, in Asia, usually things are closer to gender parity as a general rule, but the trends tend to remain intact.
I mean, I know that in Britain in the mid-19th century, the majority of factory workers apparently were women by like a small margin, 57%. Probably only in certain kinds of factories, but yeah, I do remember reading that somewhere. So, they were there when there was an economic niche to fill, and children worked in those factories too, of course. But most of the history that gets done on that focuses on the women's labor as opposed to, or to the exclusion of even the children's labor, which is interesting.
And that's the thing too. I noticed. And this was back in the Stoltenberg thing I was listening to, which was that they mention children's issues and say like, oh, children actually are similar to women in their oppression, and it's like they get so close to realizing that like the way that women are treated under feminism is as a child. Right? They get so close to realizing that's what they're doing, but obviously that realization they don't have that eureka moment.
Yeah, like it's there, but they just don't want to fucking grab onto it.
There was another thing. I'm looking over my my notes, and there's 2 points that I haven't mentioned yet. One is the spy cam porn epidemic. And I want to find the precise article I was looking at before, because it's super funny. that
epidemic in
shouldn't
inverted
be
commas.
funny. Yeah. I'll just go from memory. So there's apparently they said there was reported like 6,500 cases. The phrasing was since 2017, and this was in an article that was published in like fall of 2018. So that might have been just numbers for 2018. It might have been numbers for 2017. It might have been both years combined. So either like 1 to 2 years. Yeah, you have some 6,500 reports of I guess what it is a lot of these groups will they'll hide cameras either like in toilets, in bathrooms, in public showers, or they'll just like straight up like try to get images of people in windows and stuff like that, and they say it's disproportionately affecting women. And then all these websites, you can pay some small amount of money to get access to these photos, and it's all related to like revenge porn. It's all that kind of a thing. And this is like one of these like big main talking points among these South Korean feminists. And the original woman whose story kicked off like the relevant hashtag for this anti-spy cam movement. So here's her story. She is in her early 20s. She's like, I think she had just graduated. She wanted to have her own place, move out. So she got an apartment in a building that she got one on the 22nd floor, because they say if it's anything below like 10 feet, that's less safe. If you go higher up, you're supposed to be more safe. I don't quite follow the logic behind that. Like either way, you're walking up to your like like you take an elevator and it's like it's a hallway either way. But I guess maybe like random people, if they're gonna come in there and try to attack someone or do something, maybe they'll only be wandering on like the lower floors or something. I don't know, whatever the rationale is. But then it turns out one day the police come to her and they say, hey, like we arrested this man because we found out that he's been taking these photos of you. And it turns out this man was in like another building, and he was using a camera and able to get pictures of her naked through her window. And she was like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like, is he arrested? What's going on? Like, I don't press charges or whatever. And the cops were like, well, he, like under the law, like he gets a fine. And, like we scared him. He's not going to do it anymore. Right. They're kind of like, I don't know what you want us to do. Like, that's like it's, I guess there's something illegal about it, but it's all a little bit kind of dubious. And she's so traumatized by this that she says, I had to switch apartments because I can't feel safe there anymore. And it's like, I don't know what curtains are either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. Like you like if you have like a big open window and you're walking around naked, it's kind of a presumption that like that's kind of on display. It's practically like a display window, right? You have like a big open window. You're walking around naked in front of your window. Now, if you're a man, right? Let's say you're a naked man walking around in front of your window, and there's other tall buildings, right? I could see a man getting a charge of indecent exposure, right? Because he's publicly displaying his genitals, even though he's in private, right? The window's open, people can see it, and there's kind of a presumption that when you do things in front of an open window, like people can see it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how that logic escapes people. But since she's a woman, there's value in her nudity, and therefore she gets to be the victim.
In certain jurisdictions, that would actually be illegal to do that as a man, because you could be charged with indecent exposure if someone saw you. Whereas if a woman does that and someone sees her doing it, then he's the one that gets arrested.
Yeah, well, and what a different story that would be if the police came knocking on her door and said, hey, this man is an avid bird watcher, right? And the bird flew in front of your window, and he saw your naked form in the window, and it was traumatizing to him because he's normally not exposed to this kind of nudity, and you need to be more careful. And here's a fine, because you gotta keep those itty bitty titties under wraps, okay? Like you gotta get some curtains. If you're gonna be naked somewhere that's not in front of a goddamn window. And I get it, I'm like an awful victim blamer or whatever, but that would be a little bit more like equality.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get that, like, yeah, you shouldn't, put cameras in toilets and in bathrooms and in things, which is like gross. Like, literally, when I say in toilets, I mean, I guess some of these cameras are literally inside the toilet.
Ew, what the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So that's a major South Korean feminist issue. Just for context, though, it came up earlier. South Korea has this huge problem with circumcision, and it's something like over 10 million, like 12 million or something South Korean men are circumcised. I'm going to go ahead and assume a lot of this was neonatal circumcision. And when we compare this to their stats on things like rape and murder, absolutely no comparison. So, as usual, the number one issue in sexual violence is a men's issue. And
Who would have thought?
do you want to guess? Do you want to guess if these South Korean feminists have fuck all to say about that?
Nope, they don't give a fuck.
In fact, I would
probably
argue
don't know what it is.
I would expect a lot of them would just straight up advocate for it. They would just be like, "Oh yeah, kill them." Like,
Yeah, get them off their penis and watch them bleed out and shit.
They,
yeah.
they have a part of their movement where they like scan for abortions. They do sex selective abortions and like specifically try to target the male fetuses. If it's gonna be a boy,
fucked up.
yeah, they just,
Yeah.
They're also incredibly childish. Did you hear about the 6.9 centimeters meme, I guess?
Yeah. Which when I kept seeing that, I kept thinking inches. So I'm just like, is this supposed to be an insult? I was like taking it the other way. Then I was like, oh wait, centimeters. That's a different measurement.
Yeah, it's about 2 3/4 inches.
There's our femoid Godwin's law, which is the longer you argue with a woman,
The more likely it is.
Yeah, the likelihood she brings up sex approaches 1. And
Or you could even
that's a
narrow it.
charitable way of staying it, because some of these people, it's like immediate.
You can even narrow it down further than that. It's like almost invariably something about the size of your penis.
Even a small penis is better than a vagina.
There we go.
Sorry.
Well, a vagina is just a super small penis.
Yeah, like it's just a hole. Like, what the fuck are you? Like, what the fuck do you have to be proud about?
What are you gonna do with that?
Like, what are you gonna do? Like, your job is literally to sit down and just like be a lazy sex partner, basically.
All it does is just eggs die in it routinely. And
I
that's
always
it.
I always wondered the women who make fun of men for having small penises. I don't know if anybody's done this where they've like asked them what they think of trans trans men, because like if they're a modern intersectional feminist, then they're supposed to regard those like trans men as being just as male as anybody else, and yet they literally don't have penises, or they have like manufactured micro penises. Which is yeah.
Yeah, we've all seen the video how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
It ain't pretty. Yeah, I think that's gonna be too many steps.
Yes.
I think.
Not a good idea.
Brutal.
That's something that someone with a small dick would say. Like, you would have to compare. I'll bet the woman has a bigger dick. I can't even imagine where you'd go with that. Why did this New York
I
Times?
don't know. Do
thing-
you have a deck?
Whatever. Get rid of that. What was the other thing? There was another one too, though. 4B. This is it's kind of like the Radfem's MGTOW cringe equivalent, which is they boycott 4 things: no dating,
Marriage.
no sex, no marriage, and no child rearing. And I guess people who are part of this movement, they like take a pledge to not do any of these things. So basically, 10 to 20 years from now, we're going to be hearing all about, these old Korean cat ladies who were totally duped into these radfem movements, and now they're fucking miserable because they took a bunch of bad advice because they were a bunch of histrionic children that were easily manipulated. So that's been predicted. We can revisit this in 10 to 20 years and see how well it's aged. I don't know what else there is to say about that, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
it's stupid. Another thing too is there was this like high profile case of, I guess there was like a South Korean radical feminist or whatever who went to go live in Australia and started sexually abusing her young son, and the Korean feminists fucking white knighted for her. Like, of all the things to be on the fucking wrong side of, it's like they
specifically campaigned to try to get her out of jail, from what I can recall.
Yeah, and I think it worked. I think they had some
Wow.
Let me see.
Oh my! It worked.
Let me see. I want to see if I can find the information.
Who the fuck's calling me?
Or maybe not. No, maybe they didn't. I don't know what kind of success they had, but so that was the thing. That was in 2017, so it's a few years old, but I hadn't heard of that until recently. What's this one? I don't care about this one. Don't need this. Don't need that. I think I covered all the things. I'm trying to think. What was there? Is there anything that was missed? Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much you can say about it, really.
There's only so much to be said about it. It's awful. It's stupid. Oh, so there was, what was it? There was, it was a famous Korean politician. They call him, like, Korea's Obama, who got Me Too'd. Apparently he was actually convicted, so there may have been something to it. I even if someone gets convicted, I'm always still skeptical. I just, like, my default is, like, 100% of accusations are false, because, like, there needs to be some social pressure against this believe all woman bullshit. So my default is to just assume it's all false. But this one maybe it was real, not relevant. And then that made, I guess, a bunch of South Korean women realize, oh, we can do Me Too also. And this is a pattern again, is that one thing happens and then there's this assumption of it being this epidemic thing. And they don't even need any evidence to justify that as a quote-unquote epidemic. Just like one incident is one too many, and therefore we get to have a whole hashtag. And I'm wondering if part of it is, you know how there's this trope where in school, like, one person does something bad and the teacher punishes the entire class? And the rationale behind that is that it is that then whoever the culprit is going to have to deal with being like a social outcast, right? And it creates this kind of cohesion that they're all kind of in it together. And I wonder if that's more common in Asian cultures, and that if this has some sort of a link where it's like one man does a bad thing, and then there's this sense of like, oh, let's blame all the men for it, right? And then the culture kind of enforces it. And then to some degree, it's thinking like, oh, yeah, this is men do this thing, therefore we have to confront male issues or whatever. And then also this opportunism among the men who are not like that, right? They get to be the one good man or whatever, and they get to establish that dominance hierarchy of throwing other men under the bus so that they can seem better by comparison. Some combination of those motivations go into play where we don't challenge that. Now, I don't know, obviously that I'm kind of, you know, there's some leaps there in the logic, and I don't know how much of it is a leap, but I'm wondering if there's something to it that might be like particularly reinforced in Asian cultures. I don't really know.
I saw a video as well that said that, so there were some companies in South Korea that were trying to basically gender segregate their workforces or like implement.
Yeah, that was the PENCE rule thing.
PENCE rule, yeah. And it said that the government actually took action against those companies in some form, which is like
fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's literally self-defense. That's self-defense, you know, like saying, okay, we have this problem of sexual assault or whatever, and how about we just segregate the workforce because we're not going to have that anymore. We have this problem of accusation. How about we just segregate things? And the government says, no, you have to not segregate. And it's like, well, what other solutions are there?
The thing that makes it even stranger is that it's not like sex segregation in Korea is without precedent. Like there are loads of like they have male only and female only schools and universities in quite high abundance. There was like an experiment they went through a few decades ago. I can't remember why, but you could look at it as kind of a natural experiment, and it became useful for researchers later on who wanted to examine like the effects of private schooling versus public schooling to see which was superior, if there was any difference. But for whatever reason, some decades ago, basically like kids, when they got to a certain age, there was basically a kind of a lottery that you could go through. And depending on what happened, you know, you would end up you would be randomly assigned to either a sex segregated school or a co-ed school. So like there's already tons of that in Korea, more than there is probably in the West. And most of the time it's just, you know, it seems to be an ingrained part of the cultural fabric there. I don't know if there's been feminist backlash to it. So it's just, I mentioned that because it's makes it that much more weird that there would be extreme outrage about the idea of work being segregated if schools already are.
Yeah, well, I guess there's two ways to go with it, because I wonder, like, because I know there's a lot of complaints about like educational opportunity. I think I read in one article a woman complained that like as she graduated, like a woman shouted from the crowd at her that she's like, "You bitch, you took a spot from my son in university," right? And the issue, right, is that you know, like women will point to that and say like, this is awful, this is sexist, like we should be allowed to do this too. But there's no reciprocal conversation about the pressures put on men economically. And if they could have like both conversations at the same time, right? Like that, then, you know, that would in theory be the path towards like a sustainable egalitarian society. But it's never like that, right? It's always like you have this tradition where you have men with their role and women with their role, and it's always like women saying, "Okay, I want to drop my half of the role, like first, and you carry the whole thing," right? It's I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like you can't just require in one moment that you're freed from all of your roles without having a reciprocal conversation about what roles you're going to take on in place of the man.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but feminists are hypocrites, and, and it's stupid.
And apparently the trend of women being more educated than men, like women more likely to have degrees and so on, earning degrees, is also true in South Korea now. Like that's in full effect there too, the gender gap in education.
And I'm sure it's there's a similarity in the West, right, where the kinds of degrees they're getting are degrees that tend to not be ones that are focused on trying to get money. They're focused on their passion, right? And if you look at the sheer number of degrees, you sit there and you scratch your head and you say, how come women aren't earning as much? Then at the moment you break it down, it's going to make sense. Now, I know that with like women in STEM, I know that in China, they have much closer to gender parity. Same thing like with India. So it may be the case that
they need the money, right?
Yeah, exactly, because they actually are in some degree stepping into the traditional male gender role and actually providing for people. So it makes sense. But and I'm assuming Korea, as a general rule, it falls like halfway between China and the U.S. in terms of the stats. That seems to be like a good baseline assumption to work with. Oh yeah, but the other thing too
I'm back,
is
sorry.
You're good. So then with the workplace segregation, I guess a lot of it's based on the culture of going out to to have like company dinners and things like that. And I guess a lot of people in the culture, they don't like that, which I thought was kind of interesting because I don't know. Like insofar as I've had companies where they say, "Oh, we're gonna have like a company dinner or whatever." In my experience, it's rather fun. Like I don't really see an issue with it. I guess I'm not in the kinds of companies where it's like this big like cutthroat like dinner like business dealing over dinner or whatever. It's more just like I guess a little bit more casual. And it seems like a lot of it's done just because it's kind of like a status symbol for a company to be able to do that sort of thing. And it's almost like a relic of a time past. And I imagine it's very different in Asia, but I don't know much about it.
They could just have the men and the women sit at different tables.
Well, and
I'm
that would
joking.
happen naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, but whatever.
Brutal.
I don't know. I guess different tables doesn't really solve the Me Too problem, right?
Probably nothing's gonna solve it.
Nothing's gonna solve it. Yeah, we're doomed. Just there's no hope.
No, don't say that.
There's no hope.
No,
It's over.
It's
I
all over.
refuse.
It's over.
I was like, recently I had like a dark moment, and I was sending Derek and Toto my like plans.
Yeah, you were like
for-
talking about like fucking like destroying the universe and like creating entropy and like all this dark shit. That's just like, are you okay?
Yeah.
I think Oblivion's fine. I mean, it's
Like-
neutral, right? You
I
can't say
guess,
it's
yeah.
bad. Well, this
Yeah,
has been a
but-
couple of hours. I think we touched on all the topics. So I might make it non-live at this point. But then I guess if we want to hang out or whatever.
Cool.
I'm
Yeah.
getting sleepy.
Sleepy.
But yeah, anybody in the chat, thanks for dropping by. And I'm gonna have another stream in a few days, reading through not reading through, but kind of jumping from point to point based on my notes of some John Stoltenberg essays, because that's what I do in my free time for fun, is I make fun of this old gay radical feminist who hates porn and married Andrea Dworkin unironically, and it's
He's
it's
gay, but
absolutely ridiculous.
he married a lesbian.
Yeah,
Oh, I mean,
know,
I
have
guess
to
she kinda
explain
looks
this every
like a
time
man,
because it's
so
so
it's okay.
outrageous.
I mean, she
was-
did
I
look
was-
like a man.
I messaged Allison about it too. I was like, "This is the thing I'm looking at," because I want to use a clip from a video they have that's unlisted, and she was like, "Yeah, you can use that," and I'm like, "Thanks." And it's anyway, it's like the worst fucking thing. But part 3 is super funny. If you go to my BitChute, just like the first 5 minutes of part 3. I have like a 10-year-old sense of humor. It's to me it's like the funniest thing is a robot voice reading like violent hardcore sadomasochistic porn in a robot voice is like I want to like put it to a beat. Anyway, on that note, yeah, everybody keep it easy.
Ta-ta.
And okay, and